A little while ago, I got all confused about a lovely lady as to where she was, whether she was in Essex or whether she was in Scotland, but she was actually in Essex. And we talked about a book. Now I want to talk to that same lady about something else which came up in that conversation, and that is out-of-body experiences. Dodie,
Mm,
good
yeah.
afternoon.
Hello, Lee.
Now, I'm not even going to ask where you are because I know where you are. I know you're in Essex this time.
I
Um,
might be Essex via Scotland or Scotland via Essex, but actually, yes, today it is Essex.
Now, out-of-body experiences. I mean, I've had them. Um, I know other people have had them. But it's one of those things where you're very scared and you're very apprehensive to talk about it. I mean, is it something we should be scared of?
No, no. I think probably to define the term out of body experience might be a good way to take away or separate some of the fear.
Mm.
And I think it is that very expression out of body which gives a feeling of awe, because the idea comes that somehow or other, you're outside of the physical and you're trailing around and you're no longer connected. And that can, the thought of that can be really quite frightening. But I can't say that I haven't had frightening experiences out of body, because I have. I've had some very scary stuff, but I've agreed, if you like, to be involved in perhaps something that would be frightening before. And that's a thing that we don't really understand. But an out of body experience is usually something that has been already desired by the person that is feeling this, or by the person that is experiencing this. It doesn't happen by chance. There are things that do happen because of something, like a blow on the head, or an unconscious one can experience something strange. But most out-of-body experiences, or traveling, which is a much better word, happen with a huge degree of consent on the part of the traveller.
Okay. Now, when I had an out-of-body experience, I think the first time it did, sort of obviously sort of shake me up a little bit.
Well,
Um,
what happened to you? What happened to you? What was it? How did it happen? Was it a sleep thing?
no.
Was it? It was. Wow. Well, then you had the daylight, so that can be a bit scary.
Basically, I mean, what happened to me? I was in an apartment, flat I was living in. I was, 17, 18, and I was very, very broke and in a very, very sort of depressed way. And a couple of times, what happened was I was actually sat on the wall, up there in the corner, right in the
Mm,
top corner, looking
mm,
down on myself, sitting in a chair, boiling a kettle or something like that. But I
mm.
was physically not, I was, it's very hard to explain, I guess. But I was actually physically able to watch myself.
You were observing yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that is classic, a classic type of out of body experience. You probably don't remember how you arrived there. You just found yourself there, as it were.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which would suggest that even though perhaps you don't remember it, you might have been in a kind of state, mental or physical state, that allowed that to happen. Perhaps partly awake, partly asleep, in that mid place, maybe some other factor involved. But that certainly, the up in the corner is an absolute classic. Oh, look, I'm out and that's me down there. That's a classic traveling feeling. Did you see all of yourself or part
Oh
of
yeah,
yourself?
totally. I could see the whole room. I could see everything that was going on around me. And I was aware of the fact that it was going on around me. I was aware of the fact that the radio was playing, and I was aware of the fact that there was something over there, and everything was really, really clear. And the more it happened, because it did happen more than once, the
Mm,
more aware of everything I became, and the less worried
wonderful.
about it.
Were you, when you were up in your corner, curious?
Yeah.
rather than scared.
I think it was, yeah,
Curiosity.
yeah.
Oh, look, I'm down there. That sort of thing.
It was. It was a little bit. Oh, look, I'm down there, but what am I doing
Yeah.
up here? How's this happening? What have I done? Is this
Well,
real?
it, I need to ask you a question that you may
Sure.
or may not be able to answer. But
Okay.
in order to, had you at this down and out and feeling unhappy state, had you in any way, were you drinking? Were you sober? Were you inhaling anything of particular spice? What, or was it just happened?
It just happened. It was totally natural. There was no side inducements whatsoever, shall we say?
Wow.
I was
Wow.
just sort of. I was. I tell you what it was. I was out of work. I was young. I was on my own. I had no parents around me or anybody like that, and I was just in this sort of apartment, feeling really sorry for myself. And that's when it happened. And it was almost a thing that sort of took my focus away from the problems I was having.
Well, that's wonderful.
As I say, it was very scary, but it was fascinating.
Yeah,
If that's
and
possible.
has it been anything that you tried to create, or did you try to recreate that experience? Did it come, as you said, it came more than once? Did you, in the end, find it just didn't happen, or what?
It was one of those things where, yes, it happened on more than one occasion, and I got to accept it, and I got to quite enjoy the feeling.
Wonderful. You didn't want to go any further than the ceiling, then?
No, I didn't. I didn't feel as though I ought to. I felt as though I was quite happy, sat up in my corner,
Yeah.
just watching me.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. There's this marvelous man called Dr. Douglas Baker who has a book out. It's a very old book, Techniques of Astral Projection. And he talks about something called dwellers on the threshold.
Ah, yes, no, I've heard this.
Well, normally it would take a very long time really to explain what these things are, but basically what they are, they're a correspondence between the psyche and the conscious self, where one projects an image of fear, like a little gateway, little gate
right.
that says, no, I'm not going any further than this. So say perhaps in normal waking life, you were afraid of spiders. Maybe you would take that image with you as your token of a scary thing, and finding yourself out of body and a little bit uncertain of how to progress, you might suddenly find that, yes, you are out of body, you are looking at a pathway, but oh, look, there's this great big spider. So, whoops, let's go back into the body. It's a projection of, no, I'm not ready, or I'm going to go a bit carefully. It's this lovely safety net that the mind says, yeah, I'll have that. And the fact that you stayed in your corner, in your tiny little corner of the ceiling, suggests certainly that a part of you said, no, this is enough for today.
Yeah, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that a part of you wasn't also saying, yeah, but I really want to go further.
So, I mean, is that a classic thing? Is that the way it normally happens with people?
I don't actually think there is anything really in terms of a structure that requires that actually allows the word normal to work.
Sorry, I just wanted to think I was normal.
Oh, you are definitely
Oh,
normal.
that's all right then.
You are certainly normal, and one should say that out of body experience is everybody's. It's not given to just the odd person. Mm-hmm. It is a natural phenomena that some of us choose to perhaps remember in a more vivid or clear, bring it back into our memory. But it is not, back to the question of being afraid, it's not really anything to be afraid of. It is some part of the consciousness that chooses to examine other ideas of where you are and what you're doing. People have a way. If you read of Robert A. Monroe, who is an absolute master on all types of this experience, out-of-body travel, his 3 books cover these things. His journeys started with he was really afraid, really, really scared, because he found himself knocking around on the ceiling, a bit like you, and was terrified and thought he was suffering from a brain tumor. And if you read his books, Journeys Out of Body, he talks about how terrified he was and how he went to doctors because he seriously thought he was ill, but how bit by bit his curiosity, and that's the big word, his curiosity to look further and find out what he was doing took him away from fear and into a more abstract scientific kind of approach, as it were.
All right.
Mine didn't start like that. Mine were very much, they went through another gateway, which is lucid dreams. You've probably heard of that too,
Yeah.
lucid dreams.
I was going to ask you, because I wonder if a lot of people who experience things like this just write it off as, oh, I must have just dozed off, it was a dream.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And because there's a time limit on it, they think there's a time limit on it. They'll give it a minute or 2 or 3 or 4. They can be comfortable with the idea of just dozing off. But as we know, and once you really, a traveller, an experienced traveller, shall we say, like Robert Monroe, time has nothing to do with it whatsoever out there. And you can bend time and turn it around, and you can find yourself involved in, as are many dreams. They seem like days progress, but in fact it can only be a matter of seconds. So
it just seems very, very strange, doesn't it? I mean, to a logical mind, that people have this ability, this I don't know what the right word is, this thing where they can actually control that sort of experience.
Yeah, I find that control, the control for me was always a section of 3. It was never just myself. I always felt that if I woke and found myself rolling out of my body, which is my favorite way of getting out, I never ever bumped on the ceiling. I just kind of rolled from right to left, and would stand up by the side of wherever I was, the sofa or the bed or whatever. And then it always felt as if I was with someone. Mm-hmm. And the someone was, if you like, guiding the situation. The someone I never ever saw. I would heard him speak. He was always just behind my right shoulder. And he would talk to me about, what do you think of this or this? It's connections, suggestions. So I always knew that I was not alone. And that was a great comfort to me. And I do feel that agreement, that knowing that I wasn't alone, allowed me to progress perhaps and entertain ideas that perhaps would be very scary to some other people. But don't forget that this didn't happen to me one night. This has been happening to me for years.
Yeah, that's something else, isn't it? I mean, you are obviously, as you say, an experienced traveller, if that's the right way of putting it.
I think I am, yes. In as much as I know perhaps what I can do, and I certainly know what I can't, because there are some places that one just shouldn't be very casual about, and traveling is not really anything you can be too casual about.
Can you get to a point where this can happen to you, and as you were saying, you roll out of your body and you think, okay, where would I like to go today? I know I'm going to go to, and you can go there and experience the feelings.
Yeah. In the 80s. In the 80s, I lived in a row of houses with lots of lovely friends. And do you remember the film Ghost?
Yes.
Patrick Swayze, and how when he first realizes that he's dead, he tries to push his hand through a door, and you get this kind of sound. Well, I would get out of bed, I would roll out of my body, I'd stand, I'd look down at my body, and there'd be my dear husband fast asleep beside me. And I would think, where shall I go today? And I'd think, I know. And I would push on the walls to and it would be like, at first, because you expect there to be a wall there. I mean, obviously there's no wall there really, but you expect there to be a wall there. So you start to push on it. You expect it to be cement and clay and what have you. And I remember the first time I did this, it was like pushing on, I think of it like dry porridge. It was that kind of consistency. And
wow.
and I would push and push and push and push and push and find myself going through the other side and into various rooms. But one of my most beautiful experiences, I will never forget it, was when my daughter was a little baby, and I was lying in bed and I could hear her crying, and I thought, I better get up. And then the next thing I know, I'm rolling out of my body, following the wish, following the desire. I'm pushing through the wall of the bedroom into her bedroom. And the first thing that happened was that wonderful baby smell. That beautiful, lovely, that sort of talcum powder. And I was kind of there. I was in the room, and my little baby was crying, but stopped crying, just stopped. And I'm sort of hovering over the cot. And what was most lovely was she was smiling and looking at me. I find that very difficult to remember without feeling incredibly emotional. Next thing I know, I'm waking up and I'm actually literally getting out of the bed to go and find why my daughter is crying. But of course she wasn't crying then. She was happy. She was asleep. I've never forgotten that.
How incredible.
Yeah, it was lovely.
That's absolutely amazing, isn't it? And go on, sorry.
I was going to say that when following that, probably digressing a little bit, but not long after that, 2-3 years after, my daughter got measles, and she was very, very, very poorly. And I think my husband and we were quite afraid for her. And in the minute she had this tremendous temperature, she was very, very hot. And I'm again in her room. I think Dennis was downstairs, and I'm looking at the cot, and suddenly, out of this heaving heat, my daughter opened her eyes and said, "Oh, Granny Taylor."
Oh.
Yeah. And she was looking over my shoulder, and she started to smile and laugh. And suddenly she seemed to go to sleep, and she was better. Well, the interesting thing about it is that my dear mum wasn't alive at that point.
Oh,
Granny
goodness.
Taylor wasn't alive. But my dear little dear was seeing Granny Taylor.
Oh, how incredible. How wonderful.
Yes, how wonderful. And I just thought, oh, that's something beautiful. So this out-of-body thing, it isn't just about the physicality.
No.
And when you're out traveling, that's what you find, and that's what you realize. You meet people or beings that aren't in the physical, as well as those that are.
Do you feel that this can be brought on through places that you're in, a room or a house, or times when you maybe are under pressure, or you're not feeling so good yourself, or you're feeling exceptionally good? Do you think that sort of circumstances can trigger out-of-body experience?
Oh, I'm sure they can. Haven't felt that way myself. I think that sleep, not sleep itself, but the pre-sleep softness, the peace, the lowering of body temperature, the sense of calm, that is a wonderful place and time to travel. Equally, also, just before waking, after a long sleep, say 4, 5, 6 early hours of the morning, that's a brilliant traveling time. when perhaps the body has had all the sleep that it needs, and the mind is restless and the spirit is restless, and the combination creates travel. So I think that there are, yeah, I'm sure that there are states that help them. Of course, I think that certain things certainly inhibit traveling as well, and other things create or can cause a traveling that you wouldn't want. So yeah, I think probably I think it's an individual thing as well, very individual.
Yeah, yeah. So just basically to sort of sum up, if you get it, enjoy it. That's the real thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say if you want it, and I believe from the mail that I've had, especially after the lighthouse keepers, because that is tremendously about traveling, hugely. From the mail I've had with that, I would say there is an awful lot of people who are interested and who desire such an experience and who probably have such an experience but don't have the memory recall. So I think that what one can certainly do is set up the right kind of atmosphere and the right kind of mental structure to encourage traveling, and to want to do it is perhaps, why not read about it for a start? You know, there are wonderful books out and about that can give psychological keys. Certainly there are men like Robert Cookall or Robert A. Monroe or Douglas Baker. All of these people have experienced what they're talking about. They're not, certainly Robert Monroe, those books I believe should be in every library because they are so educational, they are so important, and they do away with an awful amount of fear. But I do think that you can create within your dream structure, just your night dream structure, the desire to remember your dreams. Okay. And remembering is the big factor, because I'm sure everybody travels at night, everybody, but it's bringing back the information that is important.
Well, this is it. I mean, dreams and traveling, is it technically the same, or is it just something which...
Well, one can lead to the other, certainly, and there's a lovely gateway called lucid dreams. Mm-hmm. They are beautiful. A lucid dream really is that wonderful sensation when you're in the middle of a dream and you suddenly know that you are, and you say to yourself, I'm dreaming. When that happens, if you can then say to yourself, okay, I am dreaming and I would love to travel, then you are actually giving yourself, if you like, permission to continue. And things will change and things will happen. Dreams are so much more than we think. People write off dreams as being, chaff of the day, but dreams are huge conversations between the spirit, the soul, the mind. We learn all the time. Gosh, if it comes to dreams, one could go on all night about dreams. Because we all have teachers, and those teachers are implicit to our daytime and very, very present in our night sleep. Okay. And what we tell our teachers and what we say we want to do, if a person wants to really start to do something and be aware of it, all they have to do is saying, I so want to travel, I so want to travel, and try to create a kind of mental excitement about it, and read and become happy, not fearful. Nothing to be afraid of.
That's the most important thing, isn't it? As I said before, you don't have to be afraid. It's not going to hurt you because it's just you.
It is you, and it is the extension of you, and your body is perfectly safe sleeping or lying. And if your body is not safe, if your body is uncomfortable, if perhaps you're lying on your arm, then that message is triggered back to the traveler, and the traveler thinks, oh, I better go back, and you wake or you return to the body. It's a very wonderful connection You're not out there leaving your body stranded. Absolutely not. It's a conscious commitment, a conscious working moment between the body, the mind, and, let's say, the spirit, the teacher.
Okay. Okay. All right, Dodie, thank you so much for talking to me. I understand a little bit more now about what happens.
Well, we've only just skirted around the edge, and really, what would be so interesting would be to listen to some of your many listeners and their experiences, and maybe they could come up with two or three, and we could talk about them, and that would be wonderful. And you would find that they would be so happy just to be able to know that. One of the things they're always worried about is are they going crazy? Well, of course they're not. They're just exploring.
And that would be great. So we'll do an open invitation.
Oh, fabulous. Such fun. Yes. The same too with dreams.
Yeah. Anybody who wants to get in touch with us, let us know about their
Yes.
out-of-body experiences. And if they want to know more about it, then we'll help them. How's that?
Fabulous.
All right.
Absolutely fabulous. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you. I'll speak to you soon, hopefully.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.